Star and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if this is your first time stopping by. Today we're going to be going over my September wrap-up and my potential October TBR. In September I read 6 books. 4 of them were for my actual TBR and 2 of them just sort of came around along the way. There are 4 books that were on my TBR that I didn't get to, and that's okay because I'm just going to tack them onto my October TBR. Well, I'll tack most of them onto my October TBR. The first thing I read in September was The Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Lori Gilmore. I think this is the first book in a series. I think the Dream Harbor series, maybe? Yeah, I think it's the first book in the Dream Harbor series. This was fine. It was a 3.5 stars out of 5 for me personally. It had all the fall vibes, which is why I wanted to pick it up, because I wanted to get in like the fall mood, and I live in Florida where it's not fall yet. It was also very Gilmore Girls, which I don't think is news to anybody, because I think this is like the fall book that's been making its way around. So I think everyone knows that it's cozy fall and it's very Gilmore Girls. This really did feel like Gilmore Girls fan fiction to me. It felt like a Luke and Lorelai fanfic, which is fine. It's not my particular taste. It's not what I want. But what I really did enjoy was the mystery, the kind of whodunit aspect of the story. It was a lot of fun for me. I know that it was a tool to kind of get Logan and Jeannie together and have them be stuck together, like while they're solving this thing is when they're falling in love, and that's fine and everything. But for me, it was the actual mystery that was fun. That was a good time for me. I enjoyed it. I wish the solving of the mystery was a little more like twisty or surprising or something, but it wasn't, and that's okay. I know that this book is very much a cozy small town romance first, and that mystery was just a tool to set the romance forward. After I read The Pumpkin Spice Cafe, I started my journey into the Farseer trilogy, and I picked up The Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb, which I loved. This was great. This was a solid 4.5. I have discovered that I love Robin Hobb's writing style. There were parts of the story where I would find myself starting to get bored, and I'd kind of tell myself like, oh, I'm gonna finish this chapter and then I'm gonna put it down, because I was getting a little bored, and I was sort of planning that out for myself, like, oh, the next chapter I'll just stop for a little bit, take a break. But then I would read a quote, or a dialogue would start to happen, or something would happen where I would just get pulled back in and I would have to keep going. And I love authors that can do that for me, because it's what's gonna get me to keep reading the book and kind of not DNF it. I will say this was a very character-driven story. I know that Robin Hobb writes very character-driven stories. That's what I've heard, that's what I understand. That's new for me. I very much like plot-driven stories. I love a good plot, and then I will fall in love with the characters along the way. This is the opposite. This is character first, and you'll start to get plot later on. The first half of this book was all character, and that was very hard for me. But I will say, once we get to the second half of the book, once we are introduced to Galen and we kind of get that sort of plot point with the training and the wit and all of that good stuff, that's when I got hooked and I couldn't put it down. From that point on, I binged the rest of this book. So while it is very character driven and that was hard for me at first, I got it. It was really well written, it was really good, and I got to the plot, and then it worked for me and I couldn't put it down. So I am excited to pick up the rest of the series. I do plan to pick up books 2 and 3 before the end of the year, and I'll do a spoiler-filled review of kind of the whole trilogy before I move on to the next series, which is the Life Ship Trader series, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's the next trilogy within this world. The next book I read in September is The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. This is the first or the third book in the Throne of Glass series, depending on how you look at it. Depending on who you ask, where this book falls changes. You can read it first, which is what some people say to do, because it is a bind-up of novellas that happened before the first book in the series. Or you can read it third, which is the publication order of the book. I chose to read it third because I am a psycho who can't read books out of publication order. It would hurt my soul. So I did read this third, and I didn't have a problem with it. I didn't feel like I missed anything by not reading it before Throne of Glass. I think it was actually really well thought out on my part, because I don't know that I would have been as interested in this if I hadn't read Throne of Glass first. I did give it 4 stars. Now, I will say it's hard for me personally to rate bind-ups, because I feel like each individual novella deserves its own rating. I didn't read them as individuals. I read them back to back as one book, so I gave the whole book a rating. There were a few of the novellas in here that I liked more than others. I think my ratings on the individual ones would vary anywhere between 3 and 5, so I did give it a 4. That felt like it would be the most fair thing to do. The next book I read in September was Riley Thorne and the Dead Guy Next Door by Lucy Score. This is the first book in the Riley Thorne series, and it is a series about a girl who is a psychic and her PI boyfriend, I believe, is what the whole series is. When I talked about this book in my TBR, I was wrong about some of the things that I had guessed at. I made some assumptions that were incorrect, and I'm happy that they were incorrect, because I really enjoyed reading this book and being surprised as I went. I really did enjoy this. It was lots of fun. There is fake dating. There is a murder they're trying to solve. She's a psychic. He's a PI. It was chaotic. There was a lot of things happening, and it all worked so well. This was a 4.5, and I really thoroughly enjoyed this. This was a really good time. Like, it was just fun to read. It was very bingeable, and it was fun. I liked that Riley was this quirky girl who was trying her best to be as normal as possible, and it was just impossible for her to achieve normal because she's a psychic, and all of these things were happening in her head that wouldn't allow her to be normal. That was a good time, and it was really entertaining. While we're talking about Riley, I really liked her family. Her family is absolutely insane, and it is so much fun. I hope we get a lot more of them in all of the other books, because they are some of the highlights of this book. Her mom's insane, her dad's insane, her sister's insane. They're all crazy, and it's so good. I swooned for Nick. I swooned for him. I thought originally going in that he was going to be law enforcement. He wasn't. Obviously, he was a PI, and I liked that so much more. It was so much more entertaining, I feel like. His banter with Gabe is some of the best dialogue in this series. The way the two of them quip back and forth over Riley is so good, because, you know, Nick's got the hots for Riley, but Gabe doesn't think that Nick is good enough. It's so good. The two of them fighting over her, gold. Absolutely gold. And Gabe is a wonderful character. I honestly think I haven't found any characters that I truly disliked, like any of the main characters. I liked most of them. They were really, really well done, and I really enjoyed reading about them. This would have been a 5-star book for me. This would have been a 5-star read if it weren't for one reason: the spice. Now, I know that Lucy Score writes spice. I've come to expect it. I personally don't have a problem reading spice. I actually enjoy it in some of my books, but there are certain books that I read where I feel like it doesn't fit, and this was one of them. That being said, we got this really weird sex scene at the beginning of the book. It was like a vision right after Riley meets Nick, and she sort of has this vision that felt so awkward and so out of place and made me feel so uncomfortable. And then we don't get any more spice until right before the end of the book. And it kind of felt like someone was like, oh, hey, this is a Lucy Score book, let's stick a sex scene in it. And it felt so out of place. And again, it was an awkward and weird thing to put in here. And I don't know that it took away from the book exactly, but I don't think I enjoyed it personally, and I would have given it a 5 stars without that. The next book I read in September was kind of like I was scrolling through TikTok and found something, and I was like, ooh, I should read that. I am a Criminal Minds fan, and I found out that there is a series written by Rebecca Sharp where she writes a book that is inspired by each of the men of Criminal Minds. And man, I should just kept scrolling, but I didn't. I picked up Ranger, which is the 4th book in the Reynolds Protective Services series, and I went straight for the 4th book because it was Spencer's book. I should not have. I shouldn't have. It wasn't the book for me personally. I don't think it was written very well. It didn't feel right to me. to read. It wasn't comfortable for me. I didn't like it very much. I gave it 2 stars, I think, and we're gonna not talk about it anymore because I don't want to bash a book. The next thing I read in September was the 11th volume of Spy Family. I picked this up because it came through my library. I was on hold for a really long time and it finally came in. I read these as an ebook and it works out fine for me. I loved it. I've liked every volume of this manga that I've read so far. I'm looking forward to pick up the 12th one. It was really, really good. I had a good time with it. Those are all the books I read in September. Have you read any of them? Did you like them? Are you planning to pick some up? Go ahead and let me know in the comments, and we'll go ahead and get moved on to the books that I want to read in October. So the first book I'm gonna read in October is gonna be Heir of Fire. I'm gonna go ahead and finish this. I'm about halfway through, I think. I think I'm about halfway through. I should get this done in the next day or so. So I'll finish this up and then I will jump into Queen of Shadows, which is the next book in the Throne of Glass series. I'm really enjoying these. I'm having a good time. They're fun to read. They're fast-paced. I'm really enjoying all the characters. I'm having a really fun time with this. The next book I'd like to get to in October is a carryover from my TBR last month, and that is The Color of Magic by Terry Pratchett. That is the first book in his Discworld series. I'll be honest, I started this book as an audiobook, and then I started getting confused around 2 hours in. I was really confused, so I was like, let me pick up the ebook, and maybe it's just something I need to actually read with my eyes. But where I was in the audiobook didn't translate to where I was in the actual book, and I got really confused. I don't know if there's like extra content in the audiobook that's not in the physical book. It got really confusing for me, so I put it down and I didn't pick it back up, and I think what I need to do is just start over in one format and finish it in that one format. I think the flipping back and forth really messed with me a little bit. Another carryover from my last TBR is Fairy Tale by Stephen King. I'm really sad that I didn't get to this in September. It was a very slow reading month for me because I was really busy at like my actual job, and because I was so busy at work, I didn't read as much as I would have liked. I'm really excited to read this. I would be surprised if I didn't like it. I don't think I've ever read a Stephen King book that I didn't like. Now, granted, I haven't read very much King, so I have limited knowledge, but from what I've read, I've enjoyed. So I would like to think I'm gonna like this one too. I do have a couple of Grady Hendrix books on my TBR for October. The first one is The Southern's Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. I'm really stoked. I think this is like a Dracula book, which, fun times. And the other one is How to Sell a Haunted House, which I'm really stoked for. They're both mystery thrillers, I think. I don't think either of them lean to horror. I'm a scaredy cat, so there's a fun fact, is that I'm easily frightened. So I tend to shy away from anything that's labeled as actual horror because it will terrify me and then I won't get any sleep for weeks on end. So I think I'm safe with these. I think these both lean more thriller mystery, which I can handle perfectly fine. The last book I want to get to in October is A Dark Academia. It's A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. I haven't read anything by Naomi Novik. I'm excited for this to be my first. I have been craving A Dark Academia, so that's what this is, and that's exciting for me. I don't know anything about this other than it's A Dark Academia, and I was sold. Those are all the books I wanted to read in October, but I did have one more thing I wanted to talk about. I have a manga I want to read. I just finished the East Blue Saga for One Piece, and I'm really excited to move into the Baruch works. I'm saying that incorrectly. I'll figure out how to say it, but it's the next saga after East Blue. I'm stoked, and I see myself reading most of this saga in the next couple of months. Those are all the books I'm planning to read in October. What are you guys planning to read? What are you looking forward to? Go ahead and let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.